As an overall society, we're consuming too much sugar, and it's having a detrimental effect on our overall quality of life and our ability to stay healthy. According to American Heart Association, Americans lead the way, consuming 17 more teaspoons of added sugar a day, which is 2 to 3 times more the recommended amount of consumption for men and women, respectively. By comparison, this adds up to approximately 60 extra pounds of sugar consumed annually. Sue Thomas is on a mission to ensure that we, as a nation and an international community, consume less sugar and lead healthier lives. She is committed to empowering people to end their addiction to sugar. As a health and nutrition coach, Thomas believes that everyone has the right to take control of their health and well-being, but she also says that sugar is indeed added to too many foods in the 21st century, and it's having a negative effect on our health and overall quality of life, and our dependency on it is becoming detrimental. Thomas also says that sugar and its relationship to insulin is causing a health epidemic in the Western world, and as a nutritional therapist, Thomas is fiercely committed to ensuring that she does all she can to educate people on consuming the right amount of sugar and leading a healthier life. And she joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Fantastic. Great to see you today, Sue. And I want to thank you for being here. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the program so we can talk about our addiction to sugar and how we get over it. Great to see you today. And thank you so very much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate joining you.
Absolutely. Now, Sue, they tell me that you say that we're addicted to sugar and that we're dependent on it, and you're committed to helping us lead a more healthier life and end our dependency on sugar. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about all the good work that you do.
Yeah, so in 21st century life, we're exposed to sugar more than ever before. Okay, so in the processed foods that we consume, it's through alcohol, it's through, it's added to bread, and even if you think about it, like the fruits that we now consume, they are bigger than they've ever been before, and they're sweeter than they've ever been before, and we are seeking out that kind of next sweetness. Now, there's a reason for this. And when we consume sugar, it activates the reward center in our brain and releases a little bit of dopamine. So it makes us feel good. But more importantly, what sugar does when we consume sugar is it causes the release of insulin, which is the blood sugar hormone. And insulin, when it's released into the system, is designed to pick up the sugars and take them to the cells for energy production. Now, I need to make it clear here that sugars, it's carbohydrate. And you've got this kind of spectrum, if you like, of carbohydrate from the kind of green end of the spectrum, green, red, orange, through to beige, through to white. The further along that spectrum you go, the more processed that carbohydrate is, and the more readily available the glucose is to the body. So if you are consuming carbohydrate from reds and greens and oranges, so, you know, your green leafy vegetables, all your fruits, all your vegetables, that kind of thing, those carbohydrates need to be metabolized in the body to be able to use them for energy production. If we're getting all our carbohydrates from the beige and the white, these are already processed carbohydrates. They've already been manufactured, and they're really quick to release the carbohydrates into our bloodstream. The quicker that we release carbohydrates into our bloodstream, the quicker the glucose essentially is released into our bloodstream, the quicker we will release insulin from our pancreas to pick up that glucose, those sugars, and take them to the cells for energy production. But if we are sedentary and we're not doing anything, so like you and me sitting here chatting on a podcast, say I've just had my lunch and that lunch involved a sandwich and possibly a piece of cake afterwards, which you know isn't going to be me because I'm the sugar-free coach. But if that's what I've consumed at lunchtime, that's going to release sugars, glucose into my bloodstream really quickly. So I'm going to have a big spike of insulin that's released into my bloodstream because that insulin is going to need to pick up all that glucose and take it to the cells for energy production. But because I'm sitting here talking to you, Kevin, my cells are going, well, we don't need to produce any energy. The mitochondria in my cells, which create all the energy, so we don't need any more glucose. We're not ready to do anything right at this moment. So insulin, you can take that sugar, that glucose away. And actually, what ends up happening in kind of simple terms is that all the receptors on the cells, all the insulin receptors on the cells start to shut down gradually so that the insulin can't get the sugar into the cell for energy production. So the insulin is then going, oh, what do I need to do? I've got all this sugar, and where do I take it? So it will either take it to the muscles and store it as glycogen, or it will take it to the liver and store it as glycogen. But what happens then, because the insulin has been quickly released into the system, we have a very quick drop of insulin at the same time because it takes the sugar out of the bloodstream and stores it in the liver. So that drop takes us down below where our blood sugars are comfortable, if you like. You might know that as kind of slightly jittery. You might know it as brain fog. You might know it as the afternoon slump. You might know it as not being able to think straight kind of thing. That's when your blood sugars sort of drop and your brain kicks in and says, we need to eat some more sugar. So let's consume quickly because the brain functions on glucose. And so you eat something really quickly and so your blood sugars spike again. And this will happen throughout the course of the day. You'll have a blood sugar spike, you'll have a blood sugar crash. We think we've got no willpower. We think, I can't stop the craving, I'm craving for sugar. But actually, in reality, what it is that because our blood sugars have dropped really quickly, because the insulin is taking the glucose out of the bloodstream really quickly, our brain has overridden the kind of our ability to be able to control what we're eating and said, eat sugar now because I need more glucose. And so our blood glucose rise again. Then we have another crash, then we have another rise, and that can go on throughout the day. So a lot of people are on a blood sugar roller coaster all day without even realizing it. They just think, I've got no willpower around sugar, I can't stop eating sugar. But that's more to do with what their blood glucose levels are doing and their insulin is doing than it is to do with their willpower, because sugar is an addictive substance and it has this relationship with insulin that causes us to kind of become, for want of a better word, metabolically inefficient. We just need sugar all the time to function. So when we have a blood sugar crash, that's when we will feel lethargic, we'll feel that slump, and we need more sugar, more glucose, instant glucose to pick us back up again. And so consequently, we are addicted to sugar in 21st century life, and often not even realizing we've got that addiction. A lot of people will go, well, I don't eat that much sugar. But it's more about the types of carbohydrate that you're consuming rather than the actual sugar in the form of cakes and biscuits.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so you also say that, saying all of that, you say that we still have the right and the willpower to have sort of control over our own health. So tell me about how we can sort of break our dependency on sugar and how can can people take ownership of their own health and well-being, in your opinion?
Yeah, so it all comes down to what you eat, the first thing that you eat at the beginning of the day, because that's what sets you up for the rest of the day. Okay. So if you're consuming cereal or toast or a muffin first thing in the morning, your stomach is full of hydrochloric acid. And hydrochloric acid is designed to break down protein. It's not designed to break down carbohydrate, and certainly not carbohydrate in that really refined form. So what happens when we have a sweet breakfast? We have a very quick release of blood glucose, of sugars into our bloodstream. And as a result, then we have a very quick release of insulin. And when sugars are released, we have that quick release of insulin, takes it to the cells. Cells don't want it. So then we have a crash in insulin. The insulin takes the sugars to the liver. So that's when we have like that 10:30 need for coffee and a couple of biscuits or something. Then we have another spike in blood sugars and then another crash. And that goes on throughout the day. So if we want to take back control of our well-being, if we want to break that cycle of sugar consumption and that sugar addiction, the first thing we need to do is think about eating a savory, protein-based breakfast. That makes a massive amount of difference, because that savory, protein-based breakfast takes longer to metabolize in the stomach, or to, for the stomach to digest it essentially, and for those sugars, the glucose, to be released into the bloodstream. And that leads to insulin being released much more gradually. So you've got a much more steady release of insulin throughout the course of the morning, which means you don't have that spike and that trough, and you don't need to eat something at 10:30. I often say to people, try just having 2 boiled eggs for breakfast, nothing else. Don't have any toast, don't have anything else, just have 2 boiled eggs for breakfast, and see how long that keeps you full. And a lot of people will be blown away by the fact that they can have that 2 boiled eggs at 8 o'clock thinking, this isn't going to keep me full beyond 9:30, and they're still going at 1:30 in the afternoon, not even thinking about eating, because their insulin levels have stayed really steady through the course of the morning. And when our insulin levels stay really steady, we release the right balance of hormones that tell us we're full. So we stay feeling fuller through the course of the morning. We don't find ourselves needing to snack, and we can reduce that kind of sugar craving that we might have at 10:30. And what that then means is at lunchtime, you make a better choice at lunchtime. Now, there's a really good hack that you can put in place at lunchtime, is if you just have a salad and protein and no bread, no crackers, nothing, no sandwich with it. If you take basically the filling of your sandwich out and eat just the filling of the sandwich, the protein and the salad, and not the bread, that will then keep you full all afternoon. The bread will cause your blood sugars to spike and crash, and you'll have the 3 p.m. slump. But without the bread, just the salad and the protein, that will cause a really steady release of sugars through the course of the afternoon, and you'll find that you're not needing to snack through the course of the afternoon. And then when you make a choice around your evening meal, the same thing applies. Try to avoid too much beige carbohydrate. But if you do want beige carbohydrate, so you say you want to have pasta, for example, have a little side salad beforehand, because the side salad, the fibre in the side salad, basically coats the wall of your intestine, prevents you from absorbing the glucose from the beige carbohydrates too quickly. So it allows your blood sugars to stay stable. And if your blood sugars are stable through the course of the evening, when you go to sleep at night, you will have lower insulin levels. And when your insulin levels are lower, you can release the right hormones that allow you to go into a deep quality sleep. And when you go into a deep quality sleep, your body heals, it repairs itself, your insulin levels reset, and you start again the next day. You're in a better place again the next day. So you can take back control really easily by going, the first thing I need to eat is a protein savory based breakfast. Then I need to make sure I take all the contents of my sandwich out and eat the protein and the veg at lunchtime and not the bread. And then in the evening, I'm going to have a side salad before I have the rest of my meal. And that's going to allow my insulin to stay really balanced through the course of the day, which means I'll sleep better, which means when I've slept better and I feel refreshed, my body's healing internally, I can make better choices the next day. And so someone can really start to take back control of their well-being without special aids, without medication, without anything that is going to is kind of artificial, if you like, they can take back control just by taking some really simple steps every day. And that breaks that cycle of sugar consumption. It breaks the cycle of insulin imbalance. And it means we sleep better. And sleep is just as crucial to our well-being as what we eat on a daily basis as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as soon as you know, as the sugar-free coach, it's really difficult for people to break their dependency on sugar, as because a lot of people use it as a vice, right? If they're hungry and if they want to sort of fill that rush of needing something to eat, they often turn to sugar. So I'm wondering if you can tell me just a little bit more about what it means to you to live a sugar-free life, and how can people wean themselves off of sugar if they've become so dependent on it.
So if you think about what sugar does to you, sugar is an inflammatory food. It will cause inflammation in the body. So it's basically heating your body up. Inflammation is hot, basically. And when we process sugar, when we metabolize sugar, it causes the release of substances that will attack our healthy tissue and cause inflammation. So what we're doing by consuming sugar is essentially heating our body up and aging ourselves even quicker, basically. It's the natural aging process is for the body to go through this kind of metabolic process where it releases what's called free radicals, and those free radicals kind of age the body. But the more sugar we eat, the more free radicals we consume, and therefore the quicker we age. So when you're consuming sugar, you're speeding up, or you're reducing your longevity, you're reducing the length of time that your body can live. You're causing all sorts of potential issues internally, like cardiovascular disease, even things like IBS and poor gut health, all related to sugar and how much sugar we're consuming. So, but because it's addictive, because it gives us that little dopamine hit, and we get that, that feeling of, I feel better once I've consumed sugar, we start reaching for it as a kind of to make us feel better. We call it comfort food, don't we? It's like, it makes me feel nice when I consume sugar because I get that little dopamine hit. But as with anything that we get addicted to, the more we consume of it, the more we need to eat in order to get the same dopamine hit, in order to get the same sort of lift. So from most people, it takes about 10 days to rebalance our blood sugars. But once you rebalance blood sugars, you can really start to reduce down your dependency on sugar. And that is the simplest way to do that, is by doing that savoury based breakfast, trying to avoid the bread at lunchtime, and doing the little salad for your evening meal in the evening. Those are 3 steps that I encourage all my clients to take. The first 3 steps, because you're not going to just be able to go, right, I'm never eating sugar again, because it's A, too overwhelming for the brain, and B, because your insulin levels are all out of balance, you then up kind of feeling restricted, and the little chimp brain kicks in and says, let's just eat sugar because you feel better on sugar, etc., etc. So what I'd encourage my clients to do is just to think, let's take one simple step forward first of all. Let's not worry about anything else at this minute. Let's just focus on the breakfast and getting the breakfast right. And once you've done that, then we'll move on to the next thing, and then the next thing. And gradually those changes, those lifestyle changes, happen over a period of time, but they're sustainable. And then we get to the point where we can start to tell our subconscious mind that actually we don't eat sugar. So rather than saying I'm trying to give up sugar, you can start to say I don't eat sugar, because that's a much clearer message to the subconscious mind than I'm trying to give up sugar. That's the next thing I encourage my clients to start doing, is saying, I don't eat sugar. And just actually really reinforcing it in our brain as well, our subconscious mind, that it's a conscious choice not to eat sugar. So it's a 2-pronged attack, really. We need to get blood sugars balanced, and we do that, those kind of simple steps of the food that we're eating and making sure it's keeping our insulin balanced. And then we start to work our subconscious mind to tell it, or, to get our brain on board to go, I don't eat sugar. And then I encourage my clients to say, things like every day to be going, I'm really proud that I don't eat sugar, and actually start telling ourselves really positive messages. But it all comes back to actually how much is sugar reducing my lifespan. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to reduce my lifespan. I don't want to reduce my lifespan unnecessarily. I want to live a long and healthy life. So if that means avoiding sugar 90% of the time, then I'm quite happy to do that. But once you've got that blood sugar balance and you've reduced that need for sweetness in your diet on a day-to-day basis, you actually find yourself in a place where sugar doesn't need to feature anyway, because you don't want to eat those sweet foods because they don't really you don't actually enjoy them the way you thought you did. It's really quite powerful when you get to the point where you no longer need to rely on sugar in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Sue, as a nutritional therapist, I know that you're constantly watching for the marketing around sugar and how it affects our daily sort of action when it comes to our diet and our actions in life. So tell me about how we're inundated with ads about eating sugar and eating sugary foods, and how can we reverse sort of that thinking? And do you think that what we're being marketed to is affecting our dependency or addiction to sugar?
Totally, because what the food industry want to do is tell you that something is low in sugar. Well, actually, what they want you to do is focus on calories, because calories, there's only 4 calories per gram of sugar compared to 9 calories per gram of fat. So if the food industry concentrate on fat and calorie consumption, they can divert your attention away from the fact that there's sugar in there, or there's artificial sweeteners in there. Anything that's got more than 6 grams per 100 grams of sugars, if you look on the nutritional ingredients, in nutritional panel on any foods, if it's got more than 6 grams per 100 grams of substance, so 6 grams of sugar per 100 grams, that's added sugar. And they're very clever, the food industry is very clever, because they'll tell you that it's per portion, but per portion is only 30 grams. So it might have 5 grams of sugar per portion, but actually you've got to multiply that by 3, and it'll be 15, 16 grams of sugar per 100 grams. So the food industry is very clever in getting us to believe that something is low in sugar. But actually they know that sugar is addictive, and so they know that we will keep coming back for more of that low calorie, low fat product because it's got sugar in it. And it makes us feel better because we think we're keeping within our calorie recommended amount. But actually what it does is it releases other hormones. It causes ghrelin, which is the hormone that tells us we're hungry, to be released, which makes us feel miserable because we're hungry all the time, even though we're trying to stay within our kind of calorie restriction. And it also prevents the release of leptin, when that's the hormone that tells us that we're full. So we just feel hungry all the time when we're consuming foods that are full of sugar. But even with things that say they're low in sugar because they've got artificial sweeteners in, those artificial sweeteners, they still cause the release of insulin. They still have an insulin response in the body. But more importantly, they put a huge impact on our liver. And our liver is where the glycogen is already being stored. So we want to be able to support our liver as much as possible and give our liver the opportunity to work efficiently, because the liver is a really important organ. But if we're consuming loads of things with artificial sweeteners in as well, that puts even further pressure on our liver. So all of these different approaches to trying to kind of eat healthily as far as the food industry is concerned aren't actually serving us as far as our health is concerned, and they are keeping us addicted to sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Sue, I'm also wondering your thoughts on the importance of leading by example when it comes to children and showing them their example of eating healthier and not being being so dependent on sugar, because it starts at an early age in creating those nutritional habits for children, doesn't it? So how important is it for other older adults to lead by example, to show our next generation that they don't have to be so dependent on sugar.
Well, yeah, when you're younger, if you fell over and cut your knee, it'll make you feel better, have a sweetie. So right from an early age, we're told that sugar can make us feel better, or it's, that it's a comfort food. And so from an early age, we're kind of relying on sugar as a something to make us feel better. But also, again, the food industry is really clever. They sell these fruit strings or whatever they are because they've got the fruit in the word. Parents think, oh, those fruit strings are going to be healthy. They're going to be fruit. But when you look at the ingredients, the first ingredients is sugar. It's all sugar. It might taste of strawberry, but it's probably not actually been that close to a strawberry. So, and these are things that are all marketed at kids. So there's a lot of healthy, for want of a better term. They like to call it healthy because it's got fruit in the title, what have you. These kind of things that kids can snack on and stuff. But actually, all it's doing is feeding their need for sweetness. It's feeding their need for more sugar. And it's feeding an obesity crisis because those kids are going to grow up addicted to sweet and sugary things and needing to kind of get the next sugar fix. And so as parents, what we need to do in order to help our children, yes, we need to think they do. If we get our kids to snack, we get them to snack on fruit, for example. But fruit, because it's the way it's kind of grown these days, is very big and it's very sweet and it doesn't have a lot of nutrition in it. What you can do there is you can reduce the impact of the glucose that you're consuming, that kids are consuming through the fruit, by adding a little bit of protein. So you might have a couple of slices of cheese, or you might have a handful of like almonds or something like that a child can chew on. Obviously, depending on their age, you wouldn't give nuts to a really young child, but if you can add protein, at the same time as fruit, that might be peanut butter, for example. You can have apple and peanut butter, or you might do carrot sticks and hummus. That's another snack. Those protein-based snacks are much better for keeping a child's blood sugar balance steady than if you're giving them like the quick fix of fruit strings, stuff like that, or fruit jellies or whatever, just because they've got fruit in the title and the food industry markets it to parents as being something that's healthy and going to keep their kids energized. Actually, what it's going to do is cause their kids to have a ton of energy and then crash, and they'll be miserable, and their behavior is not great. So sugar is not great for kids. It really isn't, in terms of their behavior, in terms of their mental well-being, their ability to concentrate and stuff like that. So really, the same thing applies, trying to focus on the colorful, fibrous vegetables alongside protein for kids. We don't have to have, what we've been told for years is, we need the complex carbohydrates, which are actually processed carbohydrates. Like, kids need pasta and they need bread to fuel them. Actually, they don't. What they need is good quality protein and lots of colors. And that principle stays the same all the way through life. Everybody, what we all need to be consuming more of is good quality protein and lots of colors, carbohydrates in the form of colors.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Sue, I know that this is a passion for you, not only personally, but professionally. So tell me, why is it so important for you to engage in this work and make sure that people can live a high quality of life without sugar? Why is it so personally important to you?
Because I see so many women struggling with their well-being, how they feel about themselves, how well they're sleeping at night, how they feel in their clothes. I see them struggling, and I see them going on these either fad diets or the next celebrity diet and what have you. And I just, I think it's so simple to manage your weight. You don't have to be following some kind of regime. You need to be listening to what your body is telling you. And whenever your body is saying, I'm really tired, I'm slumping, whatever you ate 2 hours before didn't work for your body because it spiked your blood sugars and they crashed. And I'd love to encourage as many women as possible, but this goes for men as well. It doesn't have to just be women. So actually start listening to how food is making them feel. Because when you start listening to how food is making you feel, when you start avoiding those slumps and start having much better balanced blood sugars, it opens up so much more of your life. I watch women kind of beginning to slow down from about 50 onwards, and I think you still got 40 years left if you wanted it. If you nourished yourself effectively, then you would, you'd open up your lifespan. And I feel really passionate about helping as many women as possible understand how simple it is to gain food freedom, to move away from the kind of cycle of constant restriction, constant calorie counting, constant dieting, to food freedom where they can choose the foods that they eat to work with their body type, which in turn then leads to better sleep, better hormone balance, easier weight management, reduced impact from cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all of those kind of things. And I think we've lived under the kind of messages that the food industry has been sending us for so long now, and it's actually killing people. It really is. And I'd love to be in a position, I really would like to help as many people as possible to understand that they can take back control. They are in charge of their well-being. They don't have to eat what the food industry tells them they should be eating. If they eat for what their body needs, what their blood sugars balance needs, they can reverse their long-term well-being and take back control and live a long and healthy life.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so I believe that life is about a choice, and, we prioritize things that are important to us. So talk to me about the importance of making a personal investment in your health, because I think if you're not invested in the process from a personal perspective, you won't see the results that you want. I'm thinking about, there are so many people who make a New Year's resolution to live a healthier life, but it's all about sustainability of performance, isn't it? So talk to me about the importance of prioritizing your health and how important that is as well.
Yeah, I mean, because if you think about it, what we do is we set a New Year's resolution that just feels so overwhelming, we can't maintain it. So we know within 2 weeks we've given up because it just feels too hard. But you don't put money into a pension for 2 weeks thinking, right, I can retire now. You have to continue making investments into that pension in order to be able to retire in the long term. And it's exactly the same with our health. You don't go to the gym 4 times over the course of 2 weeks and then think, right, that's it, my body's healthy. You have to keep making that investment and making an effort to look after your well-being. And it's the same with food. You can't just go, I'll spend 10 days being free and that's it, I'll be healthy again. What you have to do is you have to make those long-term changes. And I'm going sugar-free completely for 10 days and then I'll be fine. Actually go, I'm going to cut my sugar down. I'm going to cut this one thing out for 10 days, and then I'll move on to the next thing that I'm just going to remove that I know is sugary. Or I'll make this change. I'll have this breakfast for 10 days and see how I feel. And once I've embedded that little change, then I'll move on to the next change. And that's what I do with my clients all the time. I encourage them to think about small steps of changes that they can make over a longer period of time rather than one big change that they're trying to make over a short period of time. And that's so much more sustainable. And the smaller changes lead to the long term and the bigger lifestyle changes ultimately. So it's about saying, I'm putting money in, so I'm investing in my well-being just like I'm putting money into a pension, and I'm doing that long term. I find it incredible because we buy the best mobile phone, we buy the best, plan for our needs, etc. Yet we don't do the best thing for our body, but that's the only place that we've got to live.
Well, we only get one body, so we might as well take care of it, right?
Exactly. I completely agree with you. And that requires us. We're the only people that can take care of it. We need to take responsibility and take care of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my final questions for you this morning is, how do you think obesity and our consumption with sugar are interrelated? Because they have a relationship and a marriage between the two, don't they?
Yeah, sugar and obesity very much closely linked for sure. And when our blood sugars spike and they crash, and the glucose is taken to the liver to store as glycogen, that compromises the liver's ability to be able to convert any fat that we've stored back into fuel for energy production. So we can store the glycogen as triglycerides, as fat, but we can't convert it back. So we're constantly feeding this kind of fat reserve and putting stuff in there, but we can't take it back out again because insulin is unbalanced. The hormones aren't in the right place to be able to allow the liver to convert it back into triglycerides. And that is, because sugar is an inflammatory food, it causes inflammation in the system, that causes a stress on the body, that releases other hormones that again block the use of fat for fuel. And so we find ourselves putting on weight, getting into that kind of obesity category, but not being able to reverse it because all the while our blood sugars are unbalanced. The liver won't function to convert the triglycerides back into fuel. And so there is a very, very strong link between obesity and the amount of sugar that we consume. But for years we've been told it's obesity and fat, but it's not. It's absolutely to do with sugar and how much sugar we're consuming, what that does to our body, the hormones that it causes the release of that then prevent us from using our stored fat reserves. And so we put on weight, but we find it hard to lose it. And consequently, obesity has its own issues that can contribute to cardiovascular disease. It can contribute to type 2 diabetes. It can contribute to degenerative brain health. There's so many things that obesity is the kind of underlying cause for, and that's all linked back to how much sugar and where our insulin levels are, what our insulin is doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm also wondering your thoughts on whether we can create a healthy relationship with some sugars, because our body does need to produce a certain level of sugar. So I'm curious, what do you think is the roadmap to creating a healthy relationship with sugar itself?
Yeah, again, going back to what I said at the beginning, making sure you've got the right breakfast, making sure that you start the day with a protein-based breakfast and starting the day with balanced insulin levels can really reduce your need for sugar and can improve your relationship with it. That would be always the first place I would start with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Sue, my final question for you is a two-part question. And, I'm a constant believer in positive momentum and positive progress in society. So tell me, for you, what's the best part about living life? And when you look at your life and your legacy, how do you want that to be defined?
I love the fact that I have so much energy on a day-to-day basis. And I love the fact that people say to me, you look so healthy and so energized and you radiate positivity. And I'm absolutely convinced that is related to the fact that my body is balanced internally because of the right choices I make around food.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, when you look at sort of how you want to be remembered when your time on Earth is over, how do you want your legacy to be defined?
How would I like to be remembered? I like to be remembered as the sugar-free coach. I'd like to be remembered as the woman that empowered people to realize that they never have to face food restriction again, that they can have food freedom and they never have to count another calorie.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just very quickly, tell me, what's the best part about living across the pond? Why do you like living where you live?
I love our countryside. I absolutely adore the English countryside. I really do. And I'm so fortunate I live very close to hills and beautiful open fields, and I'm near the River Severn, and I just love it. I live in a beautiful part of the world, so I'm grateful every single day for where I live. And I miss when I'm not in England for any length of time. I do miss England, the lambs at this time of year, all that kind of thing. For me, the greenery, I just absolutely adore living in England. I really do.
Yeah, and it inspires exercise, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so finally tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, they can go to my website, thesugarfreecoach.com. They can see the programs that I offer on there. They can download sugar-free recipes. There's a number of things on there that they can do, or they can follow me on Instagram, Sue Thomas _ the Sugar-Free Coach, and I'm on Facebook too as Sue Thomas, the Sugar-Free Coach. So if you just put in the Sugar-Free Coach, you'll find me.
Fantastic. Well, Sue, I really want to thank you for your work in trying to make our world sugar-free and helping us live healthier lives. Your work in this space and time on my behalf is most appreciated. And I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. I really appreciate it.